Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where soap was a luxury and the streets were a minefield of, well, let's just say you'd want to watch your step. Picture this. You're standing in a medieval city, the air thick with the stench of rotting garbage, animal dung, and a distinct aroma of unwashed humanity. The cobblestones beneath your feet are slick with a greasy sludge that clings to your boots like glue. You'd last about 5 minutes before your modern nose staged a full-blown rebellion. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you're brave enough to keep going. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and the time. I'm curious who's joining me in this olfactory nightmare. Now, dim the lights, crank up that fan for some white noise, and let's wade into the muck. Bathing, forget it. In the Middle Ages, water was seen as a dangerous luxury. Most people believed it opened your pores to disease, so they'd scrub themselves with dry linen cloths, or if they were fancy, dab perfume made from crushed herbs and animal fat. Imagine the smell of a room full of nobles drenched in rosewater and sweat. Even kings like Louis XIV of France reportedly bathed twice a year. Your modern shower routine would have gotten you labeled a lunatic. And let's talk about the streets. Cities had no sewage systems. Chamber pots were emptied out windows with a cheerful shout of Gardyloo. From the French gardes lo asterisk, watch out for the water. The waste pooled in open gutters, mixing with rotting food, dead animals, and whatever else got tossed into the muck. Rats thrived here, and so did disease. The Thames in London was so polluted by the 14th century that Parliament once adjourned because the stench from the river was unbearable. Historians still argue whether the Black Death spread faster because of fleas on rats or the toxic miasma of the streets. But here's the kicker. Gong farmers. These were the brave or desperate souls who cleaned out cesspits at night, hauling human waste to dump outside city walls. The job was so dangerous, think methane explosions, collapsing pits, that they worked under the cover of darkness to avoid public shaming. And yet, they were essential Without them, cities would have drowned in their own filth. Your modern trash pickup, a luxury they'd weep over. You think you'd survive a day here? Try navigating a marketplace where butchers tossed animal entrails into the street, where tanners soaked hides in urine, and where the fresh bread at the baker's might be made with flour infested with weevils. Even the wealthy couldn't escape the stink. Their castles were drafty, smoky, and crawling with fleas. That romantic medieval tapestry on the wall, probably hiding a mold problem. And let's not forget the fashion of filth. Perfume wasn't just for style, it was a survival tool. People tucked sachets of herbs into their clothes to mask body odor, and ladies carried pomanders, perfume balls, to ward off bad air. The irony, some historians think these scents attracted more pests. Meanwhile, the poor just smelled. A peasant's typical outfit, wool, linen, leather, was rarely washed and often passed down through generations. That heirloom tunic your grandma gave you, it's got lice. By sundown, you'd be begging for a wet wipe. But here's the twist. Medieval folks didn't think they were dirty. They believed their humors, bodily fluids, needed balance, and too much bathing could upset that. Physicians prescribed less washing, not more. Your 21st century obsession with antibacterial soap. They'd call it witchcraft. So next time you complain about a crowded subway or a slow Wi-Fi connection, remember, at least you're not dodging a flying chamber pot. Sweet dreams, right? You've survived the stench. Now brace your stomach. The medieval dinner table isn't a place for picky eaters. Imagine sitting down to a feast where the roast glistens with a suspicious green hue. The bread crackles with more than just crust, and the wine tastes like vinegar spiked with sawdust. Bon appetit. Let's start with the meat. Refrigeration. A fantasy. Cattle slaughtered in autumn had to last all winter, preserved with enough salt to fossilize a mammoth. But salt was pricey, so butchers got creative. They'd rub meat with ash, soak it in brine that doubled as floor cleaner, or bury it in grain barrels. If it smelled funky, no worries. Cooks would douse it in pepper, cloves, or saffron. Spices weren't just for flavor. They were status symbols shipped from wars and stolen kingdoms. A pinch of cinnamon could buy you a cow. Historians still argue whether nobles used spices to mask rot or just flex their wealth. Either way, your first bite might be your last. And then there's mummy. No, not your mom, actual ground-up Egyptian mummies. Apothecaries sold the stuff as medicine, but some chefs tossed it into stews as a healing ingredient. Tastes like despair. Probably bread was no safer. Bakers often mixed flour with chalk, sawdust, or even bone ash to stretch supplies. Eat too much, and your teeth would grind to nubs. The poorest got black bread, a dense loaf made from rye that could double as a doorstop. Worse, ergot fungus infected rye crops, causing hallucinations, convulsions, and a condition called St. Anthony's fire, where limbs turned gangrenous. Imagine tripping on your dinner while your foot rots off. But hey, at least the rye was organic. Even water was a gamble. Contaminated wells meant everyone drank ale, even kids. Weak, low alcohol, small beer was safer than risking dysentery. You'd spend your days mildly buzzed and eternally dehydrated. Cheers. Now picture a royal banquet. Servants parade in with a peacock roasted in its iridescent feathers, a pie full of live birds that burst out when sliced, and a sugar sculpture of a castle that took 6 months to make. The theatrics distract from the fact that half the dishes are inedible. One king's chef famously served a meatless mock goose, a soggy bread loaf carved to look like poultry. Food fraud was rampant. counterfeit eggs made from almond paste, venison that was really horse meat, and wine diluted with vinegar and lead for sweetness. The wealthy didn't dine, they survived performance art. Speaking of lead, medieval cooks loved it. They used lead vessels to boil acidic wines and sauces, unknowingly poisoning their patrons. Chronic lead toxicity caused gout, insanity, and death. But hey, the wine tasted asterisk smooth, asterisk. For peasants, meals were bleak. A typical day: barley porridge at dawn, cheese and onions at noon, and a thin stew of beans and turnips at dusk. Meat was a rare luxury, maybe a scrawny chicken or squirrel if you were lucky. Famine lurked like a shadow. Crop failures from droughts or floods meant gnawing on tree bark or grinding acorns into bitter flour. One 14th century French nun wrote about villagers eating grass like beasts during famines. Your modern avocado toast would have sparked a riot. But here's the kicker: medieval food laws. If a baker cheated customers, they'd be dragged through the streets with the rotten bread tied around their neck. A vintner selling swill might get dunked in the town pond, strapped to a chair, and lowered repeatedly until they confessed. Public shaming, the original Yelp review. And let's talk table manners. Forks weren't a thing, yet you ate with your hands, a knife, and a hunk of stale bread called a asterisk trencher that soaked up gravy. After the meal, you toss the soggy bread to the dogs or the poor. Napkins, a luxury. You'd wipe your greasy fingers on the tablecloth or your neighbor's sleeve. By the end of the meal, your stomach would churn louder than a chapel bell. Food poisoning was so common that death by eel pie made the coroner's rolls. But here's a silver lining: medieval honey beekeeping was widespread, and honey sweetened everything from mead to medicinal syrups. Too bad the sugar crash came with a side of existential dread. So next time you complain about fast food drive-thrus, remember, at least your burger won't bite back. Probably you've survived the food. Now prepare for the asterisk real horror show. Medieval medicine wasn't just ineffective. It was a carnival of horrors where doctors played mad scientists, and your survival depended on luck, prayer, and how much you trusted a guy with a rusty knife. Picture this: you've got a headache, a fever, maybe a broken bone. Your options: a priest, a barber surgeon, or a doctor whose medical training involved reading a 500-year-old book written by a guy who thought demons caused diarrhea. Good luck. Let's start with the basics. The asterisk for humor's asterisk. Medieval medicine believed your body was ruled by 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Too much of one, you'd get sick. The cure: balance. How? By bleeding you, making you vomit, or draining your fluids until you were as dry as a desert. Doctors would diagnose you by staring at your urine. Yes, asterisk urine asterisk in a flask, checking its color, smell, and texture. A cloudy sample meant bad news. A sweet scent, diabetes. A greenish hue, time to pray. The urine wheel was a diagnostic tool that matched your pee to a color chart. Imagine your doctor holding your flask up to the light, like a sommelier inspecting wine. But the real star of medieval medicine, bloodletting asterisk. Doctors believed draining blood would purge bad humors and restore balance. They'd slice open a vein with a fleam, a knife shaped like a tiny scythe, or use leeches to suck your blood. The more you bled, the healthier you'd get, or so they thought. Some patients were bled until they fainted. King Charles II of England died after a team of physicians drained asterisk 4 pints of his blood to treat a seizure. Spoiler, it didn't work. Then there were the asterisk leeches asterisk. These slimy little vampires were the medieval equivalent of antibiotics. Doctors applied them to swollen joints, infected wounds, and even eyeballs. The logic, leeches could suck out disease. The reality, they left you anemic and infected. But hey, at least they were reusable. A single leech could be passed from patient to patient, spreading disease faster than a medieval sneeze. For surgery, things got worse. Anesthesia, a swig of wine, and a leather strap to bite. Surgeons operated on screaming patients with tools that looked like medieval torture devices, bone saws, cautery irons, and probes for digging out arrowheads. Infection was a death sentence. Surgeons didn't wash their hands or sterilize tools. Germ theory wouldn't exist for another 500 years. A simple broken leg could lead to gangrene, amputation, and a 50% chance of dying from shock or sepsis. Your best bet: pray to Saint Roch, the patron saint of plague victims. But the asterisk real madness was the asterisk folk remedies asterisk. Got a toothache? Rub a dead mouse on your gums. Plague: stuff a live chicken's rear end with herbs and strap it to your buboes. Infertility: drink powdered unicorn horn. Spoiler, it was narwhal tusk. Doctors prescribed mummy powder, ground up Egyptian corpses for headaches, and viper wine for erectile dysfunction. One 12th century text recommended swallowing a live spider to cure jaundice. Another suggested tying a weasel's testicles to your neck to ward off the plague. The line between medicine and magic was blurrier than a drunk monk's handwriting. And let's not forget zodiac medicine asterisk. Doctors timed treatments based on the stars. A surgery during the wrong phase of the moon. Disaster. Herbs picked under Venus's influence were thought to cure love sickness. Even urine analysis was tied to astrology. Your pee's color corresponded to planetary alignments. Medieval medicine was less science and more Dark Ages fan fiction. The asterisk Black Death cranked the chaos to 11. When the plague hit, doctors donned beaked masks stuffed with herbs to filter bad air and waved incense to ward off miasma. Their cures: rub onions on your skin, drink mercury, sit in a sewer to balance your humors. One physician recommended avoiding baths since water would open pores to the plague. Spoiler: none of it worked. The death toll was so high that gravediggers ran out of space, and bodies were dumped in mass pits. Survivors blamed everything from Jews to cats to God's wrath. The real culprit? Fleas on rats, but medieval logic was too busy burning witches to notice. Here's the kicker: medical licensing was a joke asterisk. Anyone could call themselves a doctor. Barber surgeons doubled as tooth pullers and limb amputators. Midwives delivered babies with no formal training. Apothecaries sold potions made of crushed gemstones and dried toads. The wealthy hired physicians who quoted Hippocrates but couldn't cure a cold. Your average peasant, they relied on village-wise women, herbalists, and lot of crossed fingers. But medieval medicine wasn't all quackery. Some practices had a grain of sense. Herbal remedies like chamomile for sleep or honey for wounds were effective. Surgeons set broken bones with splints, and the asterisk regimen, Sanitati's asterisk health guides, advised moderation in diet and exercise, advice that still holds up. But these were drops of sanity in an ocean of madness. By the time you'd survived a medieval doctor's care, you'd either be cured by sheer luck or dead from the cure itself. Modern medicine's biggest flex, antibiotics, surviving the doctor's leeches, was just the warm-up. Now imagine a justice system where your guilt isn't decided by evidence, but by how well your burns heal. Welcome to trial by ordeal, where divinity doubles as judge and jury, and the verdict might cost you a limb. You'd stand accused of theft. No witnesses, no problem. The court orders you to grip a asterisk red hot iron rod asterisk and walk 9 feet. If your hand heals cleanly in 3 days, God deems you innocent. If it festers, guilty. Spoiler: infection rates hovered around asterisk 100%. Clergy claimed divine intervention purified the innocent's flesh, but historians still argue whether priests secretly cooled the iron or used rigged rituals. Either way, you're betting your hand on heaven's customer service. Then there's asterisk trial by water asterisk. Tossed into a pond with your hands bound, you'd sink innocent or float guilty because water rejects the sinful. The logic: water was pure, so it spat out the corrupt. Never mind that wool clothing trapped air, dooming even saints to a watery grave. Survivors were fished out and hanged. Lose-lose. For nobles, there was trial by combat asterisk. Your accuser fights you in a divinely sanctioned brawl. Win, and God's on your side. Lose, and you're executed on the spot. The catch: you could hire a champion, a medieval UFC fighter, to duel for you. Wealthy ladies often recruited knights to defend their honor, turning justice into pay-to-win spectacle. One 13th century case saw a mother-daughter duo accused of murder. Their champion triumphed, but the crowd booed, claiming divine favor was suspicious. But the asterisk real absurdity was asterisk trial by Eucharist asterisk. Suspects swallowed a dry piece of consecrated bread if they choked. God marked them guilty. Clergy called it eudicium de asterisk. Defendants called it terror with crumbs. Some accounts claim priests used gag-inducing stale bread to test the devout. Imagine your fate resting on a carbs glide down your throat. And let's talk asterisk ordeal animals. In Iceland, accused criminals walked barefoot over hot plowshares. In England, suspects fed trial bread to a donkey. If the animal coughed, you were toast. Donkeys, notoriously stubborn, coughed often. Scholars joke that medieval justice was less about truth and more about theatrical cruelty. Here's the kicker: priestly loopholes asterisk. By the 12th century, clergy were forbidden from overseeing ordeals, fearing they'd coax God's will. So secular courts took over, but without holy oversight, the system crumbled. The Fourth Lateran Council, 1215, banned trials by ordeal, pushing Europe toward juries. You're modern innocent until proven guilty. A direct result of the church quitting its part-time job as cosmic referee. Even kids weren't spared. A 10-year-old boy in 13th century England faced trial by water for stealing bread. He floated. They hanged him. Mercy wasn't in the medieval playbook, unless you count swift execution as kindness, but overlap with the supernatural was everywhere. Wurgeld asterisk, a fee paid to victims' families, let murderers buy their way out of death unless the victim was royalty. Then, death, no refunds. Meanwhile, women accused of witchcraft faced swimming tests for centuries, a practice that outlasted the Middle Ages. Historians still debate whether trial by ordeal reduced crime or just fed the public's hunger for gruesome entertainment. By sundown, you'd beg for modern traffic court. Medievals had no lawyers, no appeals, just a hot iron and prayers. Yet for all its brutality, the system kinda worked. Fear of divine punishment kept some in line, and public ordeals served as deterrents. A thief might think twice if getting caught meant holding a glowing poker. Now imagine the smells: burning flesh, murky pond water, sweat-soaked crowds. The sound of a blacksmith heating iron, the asterisk hiss asterisk as it sears skin. The medieval world didn't whisper, it screamed its judgments. If you survived the bloodletting, the feasts, and now this, congratulations. You've mastered medieval life's trifecta of terror. But don't relax yet. Your next challenge involves 60 pounds of armor and a very angry knight. You've survived divine judgment. Now prepare to be crushed under the weight of medieval asterisk style asterisk. Picture this. You're strapped into a 60-pound suit of plate armor, sweating like a snowman in a sauna, while a blacksmith hammers the final rivet into your helmet. The visor slams shut. Suddenly, your world is a slit of light and the metallic tang of your own breath. Forget battle. This outfit is a death trap disguised as couture. Let's debunk the fantasy first. Hollywood loves sleek, nimble knights doing backflips in their armor. Reality. A full suit of plate could weigh as much as a refrigerator. Every step felt like lugging a drunk friend home. The average knight wore the equivalent of 7 medieval toddlers strapped to their body. And here's the kicker. Historians still argue whether armor actually protected you or just turned you into a slow roasting oven. But wait, there's an asterisk layering system. First, a padded gambeson soaked in your week-old sweat. Then chainmail, its rings grinding into your shoulders like 100 tiny teeth. Finally, the plate armor, custom-fitted sort of. Blacksmiths worked with woolen templates, but one wrong measurement meant a breastplate that squeezed your ribs like a corset. Ever tried bending over in a straitjacket? That's how knights picked up dropped swords. Movement, forget it. Raising your arm required the shoulder strength of a lumberjack. The crotch plate, yes, that existed chafed like sandpaper. And the helmet, a vision slit narrower than a mail slot, turning peripheral vision into a myth. You'd charge into battle half-blind, tripping over tree roots, while arrows pinged off your chest like morbid raindrops. Now, the asterisk fashion asterisk. Armor wasn't just defense, it was drip. Nobles engraved their gear with family crests, Bible verses, or cheeky slogans like "Kiss me, I'm holy." Some polished their plates to a mirror shine to dazzle enemies, and Instagram, if it existed. The wealthy flaunted gadlings, decorative rivets on gloves, to show they'd never done manual labor. Imagine wearing Rolexes on your knuckles, but here's the twist. Armor was asterisk hot asterisk. Under the summer sun, temps inside could hit 110 degrees F. Knights collapsed from heat stroke mid-battle, stewing in their own brine. After combat, squires would pour buckets of water into the armor to unstick their lord like a human popsicle. Historians found skeletons with arthritic spines from years of lugging metal. Medieval chiropractors would have made a killing. Jousting took the madness further. Tournaments were less sport and more stanchion juggling. Knights galloped at each other with lances designed to splinter on impact, wood shards flying like lethal confetti. Deaths were common. One duke got a lance through his visor, dying instantly while the crowd cheered, thinking it part of the show. Scholars still debate if jousting or battlefield combat was deadlier. Spoiler, both sucked, and let's talk maintenance. Rust never sleeps, so armor needed constant oiling. A neglected suit would flake like a bad sunburn. Traveling nobles packed their armor in barrels of vinegar, turning campaign trails into mobile pickle factories. Forget dry clean only. This was degrease or die. For peasants, they got nothing. Leather jerkins for defense, maybe a pot helmet. Archers wore padded jackets that stopped an arrow, as well as tissue stops a tsunami. Your odds. Grim. The average soldier's life expectancy in battle was shorter than a Snapchat streak. By nightfall, you'd peel off your armor, revealing raw blisters and a sweat-stained gambeson that could walk itself to the river. But hey, at least you looked fierce asterisk in that 14th century tick-tock dance-off, tomorrow's challenge. The church's iron grip on your soul. But for now, dream of ice baths and ibuprofen. The clang of armor fades, replaced by the toll of bells deep, resonant, and inescapable asterisk. You kneel on cold stone, your breath fogging in the chapel's chill, as a priest drones Latin words you don't understand. This isn't Sunday service. This is the medieval church, part salvation peddler, part shadow government, with a monopoly on your soul. Let's start with asterisk tithes, asterisk. Every harvest, you'd hand over asterisk 1/10 asterisk of your crops, livestock, or coins to the church. Refuse. Enjoy eternal damnation and a hefty fine. Peasants starved while bishops dined on silver plates. The church amassed lands, art, and power, becoming Europe's largest feudal landlord. That fresco of Jesus above the altar, paid for by your turnips, but the asterisk real asterisk cash cow was asterisk indulgences. Buy a scrap of paper forgiving your sins, and skip purgatory's queue when a coin in the coffer rings. A soul from hellfire springs, hawked pardoners. Rich folks purchased indulgences for dead relatives, future crimes, even pets. One 14th century fraudster sold heavenly passes to fishermen, claiming they'd protect their nets. Historians still argue whether the church truly believed this or just loved the cash flow. Then there were asterisk relics. Every cathedral boasted saintly bling, a vial of Mary's tears, a splinter from the true cross, the asterisk big toe asterisk of St. Anthony. Pilgrims flocked to touch these objects, paying handsomely for blessings. Venice's St. Mark's Basilica claimed to have the apostles' entire body asterisk, stolen from Egypt by merchants who hid it in a pork barrel to deter Muslim inspectors. Faith commerce. The line was as thin as a communion wafer, but dissent was deadly. Question church teachings, and you'd face the asterisk Inquisition. Accused heretics were tortured into confessing sins, like reading the Bible in their own language. Punishments ranged from public whippings to burning at the stake. The Dominicans, nicknamed Dominicanes, hounds of the Lord, sniffed out heresy with zeal. One woman in Toulouse was burned for claiming angels had no genders. Your modern hot takes on Twitter. They'd have roasted you too. For the devout, life revolved around asterisk ritual asterisk. Fasting during Lent meant no meat, eggs, or dairy, just bread, water, and existential gloom. Feast days broke the monotony with ale, dancing, and more church. Confession was mandatory, but priests often leaked secrets to local lords. Your sin of lust with the miller's wife, everyone knew by dawn. The church asterisk owned asterisk time itself. Monks split the day into 8 asterisk canonical hours asterisk, marked by bells summoning prayer. Matins at 2 a.m., vespers at sunset. Farmers worked and slept by these chimes. No clocks, no problem. The church was your celestial Alexa. But here's the dark humor: clerical scandals. Priests fathered secret kids, bishops partied like kings, and monks brewed ale stronger than prayer. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales roasted these hypocrisies like the friar who knew the taverns well in every town. Yet defiance was rare. The church's grip was psychological. Fear of hell kept rebellion in check. Even kings knelt to papal authority until they didn't. Excommunication was the ultimate weapon. Banned from sacraments, you became a social leper. Friends avoided you, businesses shunned you, and your soul was Satan's chew toy. When Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV defied the Pope, he stood barefoot in the snow for 3 days to beg forgiveness. Power move, or proof the church ruled Europe's psyche, yet faith brought solace. Illuminated manuscripts glowed with gold leaf, turning Bibles into art. Gregorian chants echoed through vaulted ceilings, their harmonies lifting hearts. For the poor, the church offered charity, soup kitchens, hospitals, and hope. But scratch the gilded surface, and the machinery of control ground on. By dusk, you'd crawl to your pallet, the scent of candle wax clinging to your clothes. The church's bells still ring in your skull, a reminder that in this world, God's agents hold the keys, and they're not afraid to lock you out. Sunrise cracks the horizon like an egg yolk. Golden light spills over fields of barley, but there's no time to admire it. You're already knee-deep in mud, a wooden plow digging into your palms. Your Lord's steward watches from horseback, tallying your labor in a ledger. Welcome to peasant life, where every breath you take, every turnip you grow, belongs to someone else. Let's break down the *** three-field system. 1 field for winter crops, 1 for spring, 1 fallow. Smart, right? It kept soil fertile. But here's the catch. You didn't own the land, the Lord did. Your labor fed his granaries first, his pigs second, his hunting parties third. Your family got the worm-eaten leftovers. Starvation was a bad harvest away, while your Lord's castle overflowed with enough ale to float a ship. Your day starts at *Claude's the first church bell. No snooze button. You'd milk cows, mend fences, or haul stones for the Lord's new well. Women spun wool, brewed ale, and scrubbed floors. Children collected firewood or scared crows from fields with clattering sticks. By noon, your back throbbed like a war drum. Lunch was rye bread, cheese harder than prayer, and a jug of watered-down beer. Cheers, taxes, more like * theft with paperwork. The Lord took everything *, a third of your grain, your best sheep, even your time. Boon work meant dropping your own harvest to labor on his lands. Miss a day. The fine was a month's wheat, your daughter's wedding. The Lord claimed *, jus primi noctis *, the right to her first night. Debatable if this was myth or reality. Historians still argue. But the threat alone crushed spirits. Your home, a one-room hut with walls of wattle and daub, a thatch roof hosting a family of mice, and a dirt floor you shared with chickens. The hearth smoked like a dragon's nostril. Bedding was straw crawling with fleas, and your bathroom was a ditch behind the pigsty. Romantic, huh? Here's a quirky survival hack. Animal bladder balloons asterisk. After slaughtering a pig, peasants would clean the bladder, inflate it, and tie it off for kids to kick around. Medieval soccer, minus the cleats. Adults used bladders to store lard or ale, waste not, want not. Resourcefulness, 10-10. Sanitation, 0-10. But the asterisk, real asterisk kicker. Serfdom asterisk. You couldn't leave the manor, marry, or grind flour without the Lord's permission. Your life was a leasehold, renewed each season at his whim. Runaways risked branding or worse. Some historians claim serfs had security in exchange for labor-steady food, protection from raiders. Most agree it was slavery with extra steps. When the church bells rang for asterisk vespers asterisk, you'd drag yourself home, feet raw in patched leather shoes. Dinner, a thin stew of beans, onions, and grief. Meat was a rumor. If you poached a rabbit from the Lord's forest, they'd chop off your hands. One peasant in Essex was hanged for stealing a loaf. His family, fined for the rope, used to kill him. Winter was a slow suffocation. Fields froze, livestock huddled in barns, and your breath hung in the air as you huddled around the fire. The Lord's tax collectors still came, demanding firewood or nails. You'd patch your cloak with burlap, while his wife wore silk from lands you'd never see, and asterisk tithes. Remember the church's cut. 1/10 of your grain went to the parish, supposedly for the poor. But the priest drove a horse-drawn cart, and your sick neighbor got moldy crusts. Corruption flavored every loaf. By nightfall, you'd collapse into straw, listening to the scratch of rats in the walls. The Lord's dogs barked in the distance, guarding comforts you'd die never knowing. Peasant rights were parchment thin. A village in France once rebelled over salt taxes. The Lord responded by nailing the ringleader's hat to his skull. Cute, yet glimmers of defiance flickered. Songs and folktales asterisk mocked the nobility, passed down in tavern whispers. Secret markets traded goods under the taxman's nose, and when the Black Death came, it didn't care if you were serf or lord. The air tastes metallic like a storm brewing, but there's no rain. A neighbor's child coughs into the damp morning, her skin blotched with angry purple buboes. You step back. Too late. By nightfall, the fever scorches your veins, and the world shrinks to the throb of swollen lymph nodes. Welcome to the Black Death, the great equalizer where the reaper takes lord and peasant, priest and heretic, and your best hope is a live chicken strapped to your armpit. It starts innocuously. Fleas, rats, grain shipments from Crimea, By 1347, whispers of a pestilence slither up trade routes. Then, boom, ports choke on corpses. Florence loses half its people in months. Parisian streets stink of rot and burnt rosemary. You watch whole villages vanish, their huts still smoking from purifying fires. Historians still argue whether Yersinia pestis rode on rat fleas or hitched a ride in human lungs via pneumonic transmission. Either way, death outran logic. The symptoms play out like divine punishment. First, headaches, then vomit black blood, gangrenous fingers. The lucky died in days. The unlucky suffered as flesh necrotized, organs liquefied, and sanity frayed. Mass graves yawned open, plague pits crammed with families, priests, even pets. In Avignon, corpses piled so high the Pope consecrated the Rhone River as a cemetery. You toss bodies in by dawn, drink its water by noon. Desperation tastes eerily like normalcy. Now the cures. Doctors prescribe crushed emeralds, potions of molten gold, or your favorite, strapping a live hen's rear to your boils. The logic: let the chicken absorb the poison. Spoiler: the bird dies, you die. The plague keeps dancing. Others bled themselves, drank arsenic, or bathed in urine. The wealthy fled to country manors, but the plague followed, carried by servant or squirrel. Quarantines. Too late. In Milan, authorities walled infected families inside their homes, along with the healthy. Memento mori decor got real. The church called it God's wrath. Flagellants marched through towns, whipping their own backs raw to atone for humanity's sins. Crowds flocked to watch, then joined the frenzy. When that didn't work, they blamed Jews, lepers, and travelers. Pogroms erupted. In Strasbourg, 2,000 Jews were burned alive in a cleansing pyre. The plague, unimpressed, killed the killers next. Amid the horror, quirky survival tactics bloomed. People carried posies to ward off bad air, birthing the rhyme ring around the rosy asterisk. The rosy was the rash. Dark doctors wore beaked masks stuffed with herbs, early biohazard chic. One chronicler wrote of a man who survived by locking himself in a room, burning juniper, and talking to no one. Medieval introverts, vindicated. But here's the twist. The plague reshaped everything asterisk. With half the workforce dead, serfs demanded wages. Lords panicked, freezing pay and sparking revolts. The peasants. Revolt of 1381 saw serfs torch manors and chant. When Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? The old order trembled. Gutters overflowed with bodies and opportunity. You'd think death united people. Nope. Neighbors barred doors. Families abandoned kin. In Siena, a chronicle stops mid-sentence, and there was no one left to bury the dead. Yet amid the void, acts of quiet heroism flickered. Nuns nursed the sick, knowing they'd die. Strangers shared last loaves. A priest in Venice wrote final letters for the illiterate, his quill shaking with fever. By the time the plague retreated, Europe felt like a ghost ship. Fields lay fallow. Castles echoed. The stench of loss lingered. Survivors clung to life with clawed hands, but the trauma lingered in children's rhymes and empty pews. Scholars still debate if the plague sparked the Renaissance, or just vacuumed up the old world to make space. Either way, your 21st century flu season, a spa day by comparison, tomorrow's horror, nights jousting for sport, but tonight, sleep, if the scratching in the walls isn't another rat. The plague's shadow fades, replaced by the roar of a bloodthirsty crowd. You're crammed into a wooden riser, the stink of stale ale and sweat thick as fog. Below, 2 knights charge on war horses, lances aimed like thunderbolts. The clash of steel rings out, a sound halfway between a bell toll and a bone snap. This isn't sport. It's a snuff film with pomp. Jousting tournaments were medieval pay-per-view. Nobles hosted these spectacles to show off wealth, settle grudges, or just binge on adrenaline. But behind the glitter of heraldry and trumpet fanfares, death waited in the wings. Knights wore armor polished to blind opponents, but no amount of shine could deflect a lance splintering through a visor. One wrong tilt, and you'd end up with a wooden stake through your windpipe, a fate that befell King Henry II of France in 1559. His golden helmet, useless. Let's break down the ** equipment. The lance, 14 feet of tapered ash, was designed to shatter on impact, spraying lethal shards. The coronal a crown-shaped tip, spread the force, but ribs still cracked like dry twigs. Horses wore caparisons embroidered with crests, but their legs were unprotected. A stumble meant 1,200 pounds of muscle and metal crushing your femur. Now the ** rules. Points for breaking lances, unseating riders, or drawing blood. But rules were loose. A 1467 tournament in Brussels turned into a free-for-all. Knights brawled with maces, daggers, and fists until 3 were dead. Crowds jeered losers, but cheered dismemberments. The line between entertainment and war crime was a knight's whim. For the nobility, jousting was * career, suicide insurance *. Young knights competed for clout and cash prizes, a diamond-encrusted sword, a sack of silver marks, a princess's hand in marriage. Most princesses weren't consulted. The stakes, high. The loser's armor was auctioned off to pay his medical bills or funeral costs. But here's the dark comedy. Cheating *. Some knights greased their armor so lances slid off. Others tied themselves to saddles to fake stability. One chronicle tells of a knight who stuffed his horse's nostrils with sponges soaked in ammonia. The stench made rival horses buck mid-charge. Historians still argue whether tournaments were tests of skill or just violent theater. For spectators, it was Disneyland with mortality asterisk. Peasants packed the stands, betting chicken eggs on their favorite bruisers. Vendors hawked sausage links and stale pies. Minstrels sang ballads about knights who died valiantly, conveniently omitting the part where they soiled their armor. The crowd's roar drowned out the asterisk crunch asterisk of collarbones, until the injured knight's squire dragged him off like roadkill. Women played their part, waving scarves as favors. But don't romanticize it. These were PR stunts. A lady's scarf in your helmet meant sponsorship, not love. The real romance. Noblewomen betting on knights like racehorses. One countess in York lost her castle in a wager, then married the knight who won it. Power move. Training asterisk was torture. Knights practiced on wooden dummies called quintons, which swung a sandbag to smash anyone who hit off center. Squires slept in armor to bond with it, waking with rust stains on their cheeks. A knight's diet: protein-heavy, venison, eggs, and enough ale to drown the fear. By dusk, the field was littered with splinters, bloodstains, and trampled flowers. Victorious knights paraded through town, their helmets stuffed with coins tossed by admirers. The losers, carted to monasteries for last rites if they were lucky. One knight in Germany survived a lance through the jaw, only to choke on his own drool. The church hated tournaments, calling them vain and debased. Popes threatened excommunication for participants, but nobles shrugged. Eternal damnation was Tuesday. The rush of trampling crowds, the asterisk thud asterisk of hooves, the raw gamble of life and death. It beat praying right. You'd slink back to your hovel, ears ringing, throat raw from screaming. Tomorrow's problem. A marriage market where love's as rare as clean water. But tonight, the clang of steel still echoes in your skull, a lullaby for the damned. You stagger out of the tournament's chaos, ears still ringing with clanging steel, only to find yourself shoved into a chapel. The air smells of beeswax and dread. A stranger stands beside you, their face hidden under a veil. The priest drones Latin. Congratulations, you've just been married. No dating apps, no first kiss, just a handshake between families, a fistful of coins, and your new life as a tax deduction. Medieval marriage was less romance, more real estate deal. Nobles wed to merge lands, settle feuds, or boost political clout. Peasants to combine plowshares. Love was an afterthought, like whipped cream on a mud pie. Girls as young as asterisk 12 asterisk were paired with men twice their age, their consent as optional as lace on a potato sack. Chaucer nailed it. Marriage is a full great sacrament, but yet I hopped away from it as any goat. Here's the asterisk dowry drill asterisk. A bride's family paid the groom's family cash, land, or livestock asterisk to secure the match. If you brought a prime wheat field, you'd wed a lord's son. If you offered 3 chickens and a dented cauldron, Enjoy life with Ethelred the goat herder. Dowries bankrupted families, sparked lawsuits, and inspired ballads about fathers weeping into their ledger books. The groom's family countered with a *** dower ***, property gifted to the bride if widowed. But if her husband lived past 40, she'd pray for plague. The ceremony itself was a bureaucratic shrug. No floral arches, no flute solos, just a village green, a hand-fasting ritual tying the couple's hands with cloth, and maybe a tipsy bard. The real party was the ** bedding ceremony. Guests would escort you to the marital bed, a hay-stuffed mattress crawling with fleas, and jeer as you got under the covers. Some even stole your shoes for luck. Awkward. Imagine your in-laws chanting fertility hymns while you fumbled with a linen nightshirt. But here's the kicker. * annulments. If your spouse snored too loud, you couldn't just swipe left. You'd need proof the marriage was invalid, like pre-existing kinship. Oops, we're cousins. Or impotence. Trials involved humiliating inspections or bed witnesses to confirm lack of performance. One French queen annulled her marriage by claiming her husband was bewitched by demonic snails. Historians still argue if she was lying or just really creative. For peasants, weddings were modest. A shared loaf of bread, a jug of ale, and a ** bride cake, ** crumbly pastry sprinkled with rosemary for fertility. After the feast, you'd return to mucking stalls while your new spouse snored beside the hearth. Noble weddings, tacky opulence. A 15th century Italian duke served peacock stuffed with live frogs that leapt out when sliced. Classy. Marriage laws were a misogynist's playground. Women became property, their money, lands, and bodies handed to husbands. Beatings were legal if moderate. Adultery. Men got fines. Women got shaved heads and scarlet gowns. A wife's best hope, outliving her spouse and seizing the dower, though most widows were pressured into remarrying before the grave cooled. But wait, ** love did exist. Secretly. Letters between a 14th century English couple, Marjorie and John Paston, reveal stolen kisses and pet nicknames. My own sweetheart. Minstrels sang of forbidden affairs and knights pining for ladies. The church called it sinful lust, but teenagers still carved hearts into tree trunks. Even Dante wrote the Divine Comedy * over a crush on a woman he barely knew. Oh, divorce. Almost impossible without papal approval. Rich folks faked annulments. The poor just deserted each other. A peasant in York abandoned his wife to join a traveling circus. She remarried, claiming he'd been eaten by a bear. Medieval Judge Judy would have had a field day, and the ***, quirky, bits ***, wife selling ***, tired of your spouse. Auction her in the town square with a rope around her neck. A Yorkshire man sold his wife for a pound of cheese. Marriage by capture ***. In Scotland, Men kidnapped brides, sometimes with their consent, to dodge dowry fees. Husband auctions asterisk. Unmarried women in Germany bid for bachelors. The prize: a man who owed her a beer if he fled. By nightfall, you'd collapse into bed, your spouse's breath reeking of onions and ale. Tomorrow's grind, toiling under a lord's thumb. But tonight, you're stuck in a contract signed with a handshake, a coin, and a silent scream.